What if one moment of silence could ruin someone's life forever? The night was still, the air thick with the faint aroma of burnt coffee and the lingering pungency of old cardboard boxes stacked high in the cramped back room of Dunn's pub. Kaley Simmons stood behind the bar, clinging to a rag that felt more like a piece of wet newspaper than the cleaning cloth it was supposed to be. She wiped down the polished mahogany as if her life depended on it, a forced smile ever present as customers jostled for attention. "Hey, Kaley, toss me a whiskey, would you?" a man called from the counter, hollering above the low hum of chatter. "Sure thing, Tom." She poured with precision, but avoided making eye contact. Her smile burned at the edges. She could sense the old wounds, more palpable than the aged liquor she served. If anyone noticed the slight tremor in her hands, they'd mistake it for a simple nervous habit, a way of reminding herself that she was in control. Kaley straightened and surveyed the room, controlling the unfolding chaos with a practiced nonchalance. Her gaze lingered on Jake, chair tipped back on two legs, his scuffed boots resting on the bar, an insolent grin plastered on his face. He was the closest thing to a brother she had, a truth she refused to acknowledge in its rawest form. "Some folks ought to know their place," he quipped, gripping a half-empty glass tightly. "You don't own the place, Jake," she shot back, the laugh that followed feeling hollow, echoing the lie. But the smile faded as quickly as it formed. How stupid it was to hide behind the bar and sweep pretend feelings under layers of laughter. She despised it, but it was easier than the guilt that clawed at her insides. As the night dragged on, she noticed Jonathan Carr, a new hire, who kept himself at the edges of the bar's social whirlpool. He had an uncanny ability to listen, watching the world swirl around him, yet never truly partaking. He was nervous, practically dissolving beneath the weight of the older patron's chatter. Holding a tray rather unsteadily, he approached her. Kaley, I got some questions about what to expect," he stammered, the words tumbling out one after the other like a toddler learning to walk. "Get used to it, Jonathan. If you want to succeed here, just serve drinks and don't let them rattle you," she said, her tone brusque, shrugging the tray from her grasp with a careless flick of her wrist. "You're supposed to look busy, not like a deer in headlights." Jonathan's eyes flicked down, and for a moment she sensed the sheer weight of his internal struggle. "I just thought maybe... This isn't a nursery. You don't get to ask questions. You do the work. Got it?" She turned away, her gut twisting with disdain. How pathetic, she thought, for him to even feel discomfort in asking. As the clock ticked towards midnight, Kaley poured her fifth whiskey, reminding herself with each pour of the self-control she was attempting to feed herself. This was her purgatory, not of sins, but of choices. She couldn't afford to falter, to slip back into her old ways. Yet a low voice interrupted her resolve. "Kaley, for someone trying to mend themselves, you sure are a real piece of work tonight," Jake said, leaning enough for her to smell the whiskey on his breath. "Fuck off, Jake. Don't act like you know me." "Maybe I don't, but I know you're looking for excuses." He topped the bar with a brass knuckle, each beat hammering against the memories she couldn't shake. A light flickered in her chest, an ember igniting a thought she didn't want to grasp. "What do you want me to say?" she retorted, almost begging. "Nothing. Just be honest, or you'll drown faster than I did." The chime of another drink order rang clear in her ears, shattering the moment. Kaley turned away and poured another shot, rolling her eyes. But in her mind, that old phrase echoed through her chambers. The weak deserve compassion, but the strong should dominate. The following night, as she brewed the last pot of coffee and cleaned remnants of the evening's haunts from the bar, she noticed Jonathan lurking in the shadows. She shot him a glance, brushing aside the gentle pressure in her chest that whispered she should reach out. "You should really stop being so pathetic, Jonathan," she called out, her words dripping sweetly with cruelty, a sickening comfort that felt right. Jonathan's back stiffened, disappointment flickering in his posture, but he mustered enough courage to reply, "I'm just trying to understand how things work." A silent rebuke, and she held on to the power that came with her privilege, even as it made her feel like sand slipping through her fingers. "Keep working on it, kiddo." She turned her back, pretending not to see the hurt etched into his expression. In the days that followed, something shifted in the air. A string of local businesses had been drawing the attention of the wrong crowd. Shady dealings turned into widespread whispers echoing through the town. It culminated one fateful Saturday evening when Jake stumbled through the hall, suddenly blaring rumors. "Guess what? Carr got pinched last night. Doesn't even know if he's gonna make it. What a loser!" His laughter rumbled around the pub, mocking but a shade too close to home. Kaley stood frozen, the beer tap flowing too heavily over the rim of a glass, her hands trembling. "What?" she managed. The sound of her own voice felt foreign, lost in a whirlwind of fear and grief. She'd seen him just days before, the uncertainty on his face, an echo of who she once was. The cops had shown up earlier, questions flying about theft, about Jonathan's sketchy acquaintances, pulling him deeper into an abyss he wasn't equipped to climb out of. Kaley's thoughts spiraled, piece by piece recalling moments that had slipped through her fingers. Whether it was kindness, contempt, or brutal honesty, she replayed the last few exchanges through a veil of mustard-colored regret. Then came the moment when she could have spoken, opened her mouth and willed the words out for him. Instead, even after the chatter and the accusations echoed back to her from peers and patrons, she held her silence tight. The fear of navigating another's grief while grappling with her own darkness suffocated her. Within weeks, Jonathan Carr stood before the crowd as the sheriff delivered his own verdict, shaking but resolute. "We're all in this together to see justice done, but sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about facing the truth." Kaley felt the weight of the crowd's gaze, her heart knitting itself into a tapestry of anguish as those words struck her irreversibly. She stood cold among the judgmental faces. When they turned towards her, she felt the sting directly. Jake's voice thundered into the silence, a blade forged of laughter. "You know, Kaley's the reason the kid's stuck like this. You said you were better, yet who did you leave behind? All the promises in the wind? Such a glitch in character here." She straightened, her heart racing as she gathered herself. The consequences were blooming inside her, more prominent than any discomfort she'd ever dished out. "Tonight," she began, choking on her own words, "you think you know what I am? You think casting shadows over someone else's light lifts you up? I messed up, Jake, but I'm fighting here for everyone who doesn't deserve what's gone down. I'm trying to be something other than a weakling who hurt." The words slipped out, raw, but it stung in its truth. But silence prevailed as Jonathan's back turned into a final act of dissociation, every moment of the past caressing his breath in disbelief. As the congregation mumbled and dispersed, she lingered in silence, staring into the revelry diminishing around her. She could do nothing but witness a flaw, wrapped in an unforgiving armor she'd forged from the bitterness of her choices, a laugh dying on her lips. And she was left holding her own heartbreak as her words echoed through the empty bar, along with the truth that Jonathan Carr had become a victim, not of justice, but of a silence that even cruelty couldn't break. She stood there for a long while, her heart heavy, the cold air wrapping around her. The familiar phrase echoed hauntingly, "The strong should dominate." In the end, only she could hear the real lesson reverberating, one she wasn't ready to confront.